Jim Schleif, the pastor at St. John's United Church of Christ in both Hartford and Slinger, Wisconsin. And I'm coming to you this evening just with a short video from a makeshift studio in the lower level of our home. We're abiding by the Safer at Home guidelines that the governor of Wisconsin has had in effect since last Wednesday. But as a church pastor and as leaders in the church all around this country and the globe scramble to try to provide a way of meaningfully contacting and connecting with church families and parishioners at this time of stress, a time of pandemic, we are utilizing a variety of tools here at St. John's to try to stay connected with our folks. So last Sunday we did our first Facebook Live stream video. However, if you aren't a Facebook subscriber or user, you were unable to access that. So my goal is through a shorter and a recorded video that could be uploaded to our YouTube channel for our St. John's churches that might be accessible to more of our members. What you'll see on the makeshift studio here is some symbols from our churches in Slinger and Hartford. A cross, wooden cross, our baptismal pitcher, our communion service, cup, pallet and pitcher, a little wooden symbol of 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and this one of my favorites, a souvenir lunchbox from Chicago Theological Seminary, my alma mater, with the painting of the Last Supper inscribed. And so by having those symbols, hopefully our members would recognize some of those things that would remind them of church in our normal church home together. This week, the scriptures, this was the 5th Sunday of Lent, the last Sunday in Lent prior to entering Palm or Passion Sunday, and then our Holy Week leading up to Easter. But on this 5th Sunday of Lent, in the Revised Common Lectionary, our scriptures come from Ezekiel. The scriptures related to the Valley of the Dry Bones, and also from the Gospel of John, chapter 11, the raising of Lazarus. So as Ezekiel enters this valley of dry bones, there are dry, withered bones scattered across the valley floor as far as he can see, and God is speaking through Ezekiel, tells him to prophesy to the bones, and they will come together, to prophesy again, and sinews will be attached to the bones, and then flesh, to the point where there are bodies intact where there were once just dry bones, and then to prophesy again the breath of the Holy Spirit, which will bring them back to life. In the Gospel of John, last week we had heard the 6th sign in the Gospel of John, where Jesus restored sight to the man who was born blind. This week we have the 7th sign, where Jesus returns to Bethany on the doorsteps of Jerusalem. In the midst of danger, he was essentially run out of Jerusalem after healing the man blind from birth. But here in Bethany, his dear friend Lazarus has become ill and has passed away. Jesus arrives. Martha and Mary, Lazarus' sisters, are full of grief. They're upset that Jesus didn't come earlier. Jesus is overwhelmed by grief as well. He weeps at the loss of his dear friend. And then he asks Martha to take him to the tomb. Martha and Mary accompany Jesus to the tomb. Jesus says, "Roll the stone away," and Martha warns him, "But Jesus, it is gonna stink. He's been dead 4 days. It'll be a terrible stench." They roll the stone away. Jesus commands Lazarus to get up. He says, "Lazarus, come out." And at his voice, Lazarus stumbles out of the tomb into the daylight, still bound in his death linens. There's some commonalities in these stories. It's the voice of God. It's the breath of the Holy Spirit. It's the voice of Jesus calling out that brings life to where death once was. It's not the belief of the people. It's not that they have to believe a certain way or believe the right things. It's that they witness the power of the Holy Spirit, the power of God working through the Holy Spirit and through Jesus of Nazareth as life is restored. And in this time of pandemic, in this time where we suffer death in so many ways, we wonder, when will life get back to where the way it was? Will we keep our job? When will we be able to go back to work? When will I be able to hug my children and grandchildren? And yet, we see acts of compassion. We see acts of kindness in the midst of the challenges that we face. We see teachers with impromptu parades, signs hung on the sides of their vehicles, greeting and sharing love and greetings with their children. We see children standing on the sidewalks holding signs showing their love and appreciation for their teachers. Last week I had a call from someone helping coordinate donations from a local company that was celebrating their 40th anniversary. They wanted to buy 40 meals from one of their local favorite restaurants who was struggling under the current social distancing restrictions. They purchased 40 meals, left a 40% tip, and asked local nonprofits where those meals might be of most benefit. So I also saw a Facebook post from my daughter-in-law, taken from home. She was at home with the kids, 3 grandchildren, creating stained glass window projects on the windows of their dining room. 3 kids working side by side, each crafting, creatively creating. And I thought, oftentimes, when both parents get home from work and they're struggling to try to get dinner on the table, those same 3 kids would be fighting over the TV remote. I thought there's hope. There is promise of God creating new out of even these hard times that we face now. So I leave you with that message. We don't know when the peak of this pandemic will pass. We don't know when life will start to return to some semblance of normalcy. But we trust that Jesus in full humanity, as we saw in this gospel reading from Lazarus, regarding Lazarus, where Jesus weeps, where Jesus grieves, where Jesus suffers alongside Mary and Martha, that Jesus will accompany us as well as we trudge through this dark valley, and that the rays of hope and promise of God's power to continue to create anew and anew and anew will bring new joys, bring new promises of life abundant life that we Christians find in Jesus of Nazareth, life for the here and the now, not just on the last day, as Martha incorrectly thought. So I leave you with those thoughts. I pray that God will bless you and keep you, and that you will know the peace of Christ resting deeply within your souls as we continue on this journey of life. May God bless you and keep you.